Thank you all for joining today for the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity. Prime Minister Kishida, thank you for your leadership and partnership as we prepared for this announcement. We're launching today with countries from across the Indo-Pacific, Australia, Brunei, India, and by the way, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for being here as well, Prime Minister of India, Republic of Korea, Malaysia, New Zealand, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. We're here today for one simple purpose. The future of the 21st century economy is going to be largely written in Indo-Pacific, in our region. The Indo-Pacific covers half the population of the world and more than 60% of the global GDP. And the nations represented here today, and those who will join this framework in the future, are signing up to work toward an economic vision that will deliver for all peoples, all our peoples. The vision for an Indo-Pacific that is free and open and secure as well as resilient, where economic growth is sustainable and is inclusive. We're writing the new rules for the 21st century economy that are going to help all of our countries' economies grow faster and fair. We'll do that by taking on some of the most acute challenges that drag down growth and by maximizing the potential of our strongest growth engines. Let's start with new rules governing trade and digital goods and services, so companies don't have to hand over the proprietary technology to do business in a country. Let's create a first-of-its-kind supply chain commitments to eliminate bottlenecks in critical supply chains and develop early warning systems so we can identify problems before they occur. And let's pursue other first-of-its-kind commitments to clean energy and decarbonization. The climate crisis is an existential threat that is costing us trillions in economic damage, but there's also incredible potential and opportunity to solve problems and create good jobs by transitioning to a clean energy economy. Let's choke off the loopholes that get at the corruption that steals our public resources. It's estimated that corruption saps between 2 to 5% of global GDP. It exacerbates inequality. It hollows out a country's ability to deliver for its citizens. And tax and trade belongs in the same framework because if companies aren't paying their fair share, it's harder for governments to pay for trade adjustment assistance or to fund education or health services or a range of public investments that make it so hard for families that feel like they can't raise their children and give them a better life. That's ultimately my economic policy and foreign and domestic, what our foreign and domestic policy is about. And that's what this framework is about as well. So starting today with 13 economies, economies that represent diverse sets of perspectives as we work on pursuing our common goals. That's critical because a key to our success will be the framework's emphasis on high standards and inclusivity. This framework should drive a race to the top among the nations in the Indo-Pacific region. And I want to be clear that the framework will be open to others who wish to join in the future if they sign up and meet the goals and work to achieve those goals. I'm glad to have seen so many of you in person the past 2 weeks. At the U.S.-ASEAN Summit, I saw many of you in Washington, and during my travels to Asia, and I'm eager to hear from each of you today. I thank you for taking the time to be part of this framework launch, and let me close by saying the United States is deeply invested in the Indo-Pacific. We're committed for the long haul, ready to champion our vision for a positive future for the region, together with friends and partners, including the nations in this room and on the screen. It's a priority in our agenda, and we're going to keep working to make progress with all of you every day so that we can deliver real, concrete benefits for all our people. That's how I believe we will win the competition of the 21st century together. So thank all of you again for joining today, and I'll invite Prime Minister Kishida to say a few words now. Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Joe.
ジョーさんありがとうございます。
President Biden of the United States of America and distinguished leaders, I sincerely welcome and strongly support the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, IPEF, proposed by President Biden today in Japan. As President Biden mentioned just now, the Indo-Pacific region is home to half of the world's population and approximately 60% of the world's GDP. And it truly is the engine of global growth and vitality. Aiming to realize a free and open Indo-Pacific, Japan has been contributing to the stable prosperity of the region in cooperation with the United States and regional partners, focusing on three pillars, namely entrenching and strengthening fundamental values and principles, pursuing economic prosperity, and ensuring peace and stability. And tonight, the fact that President Biden is visiting Japan and announcing the launch of IPEF here is a clear demonstration of the United States' strong commitment to the region. I commend wholeheartedly President Biden for his strong leadership. Japan will join IPEF and work closely with the United States, ASEAN countries, and other regional partners to help create a new framework. In order for IPEF to be a meaningful framework for the regional economic order, it is important to address what we can among areas that are critical in participating countries and to have concrete outcomes. IPEF's focus on supply chain resilience, decarbonization, and clean energy, as well as the digital economy, is timely in the current international context. It is important to work with the private sector in these areas of cooperation. This includes digital trade, creating common regional rules and standards, improving transparency and predictability, developing talent and technical assistance. Let us work together to create a framework that finds a good balance between cooperation and rules, and we look forward to working with you on that. I believe it is important for ASEAN, the source of dynamism in this region, to play a central role in IPEF. Japan respects the unity and centrality of ASEAN and will actively participate in the discussions in cooperation with the United States and other partners who are here today. We look forward to working together to build a more prosperous Indo-Pacific region by bringing together the initiatives and wisdoms of countries in the region, including the U.S.'s Indo-Pacific strategy, Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific, the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, and India's Act East policy. IPEF is an inclusive and open framework that will remain open to the participation of new partners following its inception today. We welcome more partner countries to join IPEF discussions in the future. And through IPEF, we will work together to create an economic order that will ensure sustainable growth, peace, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region, in the years ahead. I look forward to the opportunity to work with our many partners in the region. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, Prime Minister Kishida, thank you very, very much. And to everyone, we'd like to give everyone participating an opportunity to speak to this initiative, starting with Prime Minister Modi. Mr. Prime Minister.
Rashtrapati Biden.
President Biden and Prime Minister Kishida and all the leaders who are with us today online. Excellencies, I am very pleased to be with all of you at this important event. The Indo-Pacific Framework is the announcement of our collective desire to make this region the engine of global economic growth. I thank President Biden for taking the initiative to organize this important event. The Indo-Pacific region is the center for manufacturing, economic activities, global trade, and investment. History bears witness to the fact that India has for centuries been a very important center for trade flows in this region. It is therefore significant that the most ancient commercial port is located in my home state in Gujarat, in Lothal, and therefore it is necessary that we find shared solutions to the economic challenges of the region and that we make creative arrangements. Excellencies, India will work with all of you to build an inclusive and resilient Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. I believe that the three key pillars for resilient supply chains between us are trust, transparency, and timelines. I am sure that this framework will be helpful in strengthening these three pillars and will encourage development, peace, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. It's a pleasure now to call on the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Prime Minister Ardern.
Oh, kia ora koutou katoa na mihi nui kia koutou, and my warmest greetings to you all. As my fellow leaders gather for today's announcement, I'm en route to the United States for my first visit since the pandemic, but my third as Prime Minister. I'm very much looking forward to my visit to the US and supporting the businesses travelling with me as we reconnect with the world after a long period of disruption. New Zealand warmly welcomes the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework as a strong signal of US investment in the economic future of our wider home region. Our region is open for trade, investment, and movement of people to support prosperity and open supply chains. The post-COVID world will be a new era. Our goal has to be to make it a better era. And if the Indo-Pacific is to successfully rise to the many challenges it faces, governments need to recommit to supporting an open and rules-based regional order, one that's more sustainable and resilient for all. The Indo-Pacific Initiative has the potential to boost growth and support the regional economic recovery as the world moves on from the pandemic. In the post-COVID recovery, greater economic engagement will be necessary. And now is the time to open doors, not close them. This initiative, as a non-traditional agreement, will provide new channels of collaboration in ways not just limited to trade. In particular, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework will support collaboration on climate action and will be designed with a focus on sustainability and inclusivity, principles that are fundamental for New Zealanders. This initiative comes at a time of challenge to our region's security and prosperity, but together we can and will design a future that benefits all of our peoples. New Zealand ultimately aspires for the Indo-Pacific region to become freer and more open. As the region emerges from the pandemic, we hope it will be both. Together we can ensure a future Indo-Pacific region that is more economically prosperous and more secure for all. That's why today I'm very pleased to join with my fellow leaders from the region to add New Zealand's support to the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Kia ora and thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. I'd like now to call upon the President of the Republic of Korea, President Yoon.
Your Excellencies, leaders of the IPEF partners, distinguished delegates, it is a pleasure to meet you. It is wonderful to join you on this meaningful occasion that seeks to promote sustainable growth of the Indo-Pacific. I extend my deepest gratitude to President Biden for his outstanding leadership that has led to the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity. Having spent the last 3 days together in Korea, Mr. President Biden, I am delighted to see you again. Right after I won the election, Prime Minister Kishida and Prime Minister Modi personally congratulated me on the phone. It is great to see you virtually. Today's launch of the IPEF is joined by many leaders. This in and of itself imparts stronger conviction in the successful future of the IPEF. All of you here have sent their best wishes for my new administration, and I look forward to meeting you in person in the near future. Fellow leaders and distinguished delegates, today, the world as a whole is confronted with a pandemic, supply chain disruptions, climate change, food and energy insecurity, and other numerous complex crises. No single country alone can tackle these tough challenges. As such, solidarity and cooperation among countries across the globe are called for more so than ever. Given these difficult circumstances, the launch of the IPEF for shared prosperity of the regional countries is immensely important indeed. Fellow leaders and delegates, the Republic of Korea, on the foundation of liberal democracy and market economy, was able to attain rapid growth and development. Across a full spectrum of the IPEF pillars, Korea stands ready to share its experiences and work together. From supply chain resilience, digital transformation, clean energy to decarbonization in particular, let me share how we plan to contribute.
First, for an effective response to the global supply chain crisis, it is imperative that we have a global coordination mechanism in place in semiconductors, batteries, future mobility, and other leading-edge industries. Where we possess core competencies, we commit to work with regional partners to build supply chains that deliver mutual benefits. Second, the entire world is undergoing disruptive changes brought on by the transition to digital economy. Korea is the world's first country to have commercialized 5G based on its excellence in telecommunication technologies. From AI, data to 6G, Korea will drive innovation in emerging technologies and contribute to building digital infrastructure and bridging the digital divide. Lastly, in clean energy and decarbonization, Korea also stands ready to actively collaborate. In nuclear power, hydrogen, renewable energy, and other clean energy sectors, Korea will harness its technological prowess and make bold investments to establish low-carbon infrastructure and contribute to building stronger technology capacity. Fellow leaders and delegates, today's launch of the IPEF amid this rapidly changing economic environment is a testament to the regional countries' commitment to solidarity and cooperation in what I view as a meaningful first step forward. I expect that the IPEF will move forward under the principles of openness, inclusiveness, and transparency. To open an era of shared prosperity in the Indo-Pacific, let us join our strengths. Building on strong solidarity, Korea, for its part, commits to fulfill its responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The floor is now to the Prime Minister of Singapore, Prime Minister Lee.
다음은 싱가포르 리센론 총리님 대통령께 발언 부탁드리겠습니다. 바이든 대통령님, 기빈 여러분, 바이든 대통령께 싱가포르의 이 IPEF 출범식에 참여하도록 초대해 주셔서 감사합니다. 싱가포르는 IPEF를 환영합니다. 저희는 항상 열린 그리고 포용적인 규칙 기반의 질서를 추구해 왔습니다. 그리고 안정과 번영을 추구해 왔습니다. IPEF는
I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Prime Minister. We're not getting
죄송합니다.
the interpretation
저희가
into
통역이
English
들리지가
or
않습니다.
other languages. Can we just check the interpretation, please?
Would you like me to start again?
So, with apologies, perhaps. Let's see if this is working. Would you mind, Mr. Prime Minister?
Are you ready?
Please, we'll give it a try.
President Biden, Excellencies. I'd like to thank President Biden for inviting Singapore to participate in the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, or the IPEF. Singapore welcomes the IPEF. We've always upheld an open, inclusive, and rules-based order that is stable, secure, and prosperous. The IPEF is of both strategic and economic significance. It can be a valuable platform for the US to exercise economic diplomacy in the region. And it clearly signals the US's continued commitment to engage with its partners in Asia and deepen ties across the Pacific. I'm happy that the IPEF contains a forward-looking and positive agenda on economic cooperation. The 4 pillars include issues that will resonate strongly in the region. In particular, they'll also cover cooperation in the digital economy and the green economy, which show promise of growth. It's important that the IPEF remains open, inclusive, and flexible, enabling members to continue working with many other partners in overlapping circles of cooperation, and leaving membership open to others to join later on, as and when they are ready to do so. We look forward to working closely with the United States and other partners to flesh out the IPEF, and we hope that in due course it will lead on to even greater and more ambitious economic engagement between the United States and the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. It sounded even better the second time. Thank you. The floor now is to the Prime Minister of Thailand, Prime Minister Prayut, excuse me.
President Biden, Prime Minister Kishida, Excellencies. I wish to express my thanks to President Biden and Prime Minister Kishida for hosting the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, or IPEF, today. I'd also like to commend and congratulate President Biden for the initiative, which reflects the determination of the United States to play a constructive role in the Indo-Pacific, especially in promoting economic prosperity in the region, which has been well received among ASEAN member states. IPEF comprises a conceptual framework and a set of loose principles that will serve to promote economic cooperation, trade, and investment. It will lead to 4 pillars of cooperation that will advance development in various areas, be it in terms of policy, laws, industries, and the environment. This will enhance access to sources of finance and technology in order to progress our national development and promote supply chain resilience. Currently, it is still a work in progress, with detailed consultations planned in the near future. For Thailand's part, we have long been proponents of open trade to foster economic resilience throughout our history. With approximately 60% of our GDP coming from the export of goods and services, we highly value the promotion of regional cooperation to expand trade and investment opportunities to their fullest potential. At the same time, we attach utmost importance in steering our country and people towards a future that is secure, prosperous, and sustainable. We are determined to foster an economic growth that is balanced and environmentally friendly through the Bio-Circular Green, or BCG, economy model. This encompasses efforts to accelerate our energy transition towards clean energy, reduce carbon emissions, promote the digital economy, and create added value through the application of science, technology, and innovation. We currently face a myriad of emerging challenges in today's world. No country can ever confront such challenges alone. I am, therefore, pleased that IPEF emphasizes the inclusive participation of countries across the region to promote prosperity, sustainability, and inclusivity together. Lastly, I wish to reiterate that world history, and that of Thailand, has illustrated to us that economic growth and the expansion of trade and investment will only be most beneficial for all of us if it is constructive, not politicized, and gears towards solidarity. Thailand upholds the principles of free trade, as demonstrated in our ongoing open trade with various countries. We are strongly committed to pursuing close and constructive trade cooperation with our partner countries. I am confident that an inclusive economic cooperation within the region will lead to economic growth and prosperity for all of us and reap the most tangible benefits for our peoples. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Prayut. The floor is now to the Prime Minister of Vietnam, Prime Minister Chinh.
Your Excellency, President Joseph Biden, President of the United States of America, Your Excellency Kishida Fumio, Prime Minister of Japan, Your Excellency Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of India. Ladies and gentlemen, I also like to congratulate the President of the ROK, and I thank you, President Biden, for inviting me to the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, an important initiative of your making. Excellencies, the current landscape calls for an adjustment of our growth model and economic linkages towards greater sustainability and resilience. We need to fully harness internal power, optimize external resources, minding that internal resources are fundamental, strategic, and long-term determinants, and external resources are a constant, important game changer. Multilateralism and international solidarity must be advanced, grounded in sincerity, trust, responsibility. Today's launch will kickstart a serious discussion and exchange of ideas towards addressing critical regional and global issues together, which no one can address on their own. Such issues of global scope, such as supply chains diversification and resilience, technological innovation, digital transformation, e-commerce promotion, climate change response, net zero emission by 2050, green growth, taxation issues, and anti-corruption, among many others. These are major issues. Ladies and gentlemen, Vietnam pursues a consistent policy for and is making all efforts on an independent, self-reliant economy hand in hand with extensive and substantive international integration. Vietnam also participates in various initiatives of international connectivity. It is an active contributor to the joint efforts to accelerate economic recovery and sustainable development in the region and the world. With respect to IPEF, we expect that the discussion and brainstorming will bring about a cooperation framework that is truly beneficial to our people. After all, the people are the center, the object, the purpose, and the driver for development in all ties of cooperation within international integration process today. This should be an open, inclusive, and flexible process. It's also balanced pursuant to international law that serves the lawful and legitimate interests of parties concerned and ensuring ASEAN centrality. IPEF will be best harnessed when it complements existing economic connectivity initiatives as a resource multiplier and spread of benefits. Vietnam pledges to work with the ASEAN member states, US, and its partners to continue discussion to clarify what the IPEF cooperation pillars would entail and bring about an economic agenda that is conducive for the region and for each country for peace, stability, cooperation, and development in the region and the world, and prosperity for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I'd like to call next on the Minister of Finance of Brunei, Dato Amin.
President Biden, Prime Minister Kishida, Excellencies, good afternoon. First of all, His Majesty Sultan Haji Hassan Al Bolkiah of Brunei Darussalam sends his regrets that he is unable to attend today's launching event due to prior commitments. His Majesties extend his best wishes and would also like to express his sincere appreciation to President Biden for the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework initiative. This initiative reflects the United States' commitment to re-engage and enhance the economic cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. Recent global events had presented us with challenging circumstances. At the same time, they have provided us with opportunities and, more importantly, valuable lessons on how to better prepare for future crises and in building economic resilience. COVID-19 pandemic has also taught us that only through collective efforts and strong cooperation can we overcome the crisis and recover stronger together. It is on this note that we welcome the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which touches on modern and emerging issues such as digitalization, supply chain resilience, and environmental protection. We believe the framework can be a platform for us to realize our vision of advancing resilience, sustainability, inclusiveness, economic growth, fairness, and competitiveness in an interconnected and prosperous region. In closing, we look forward to further our in-depth discussions on IPEF with participating and other potential members going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Can we turn next to the Minister of Trade of Indonesia? Mr. Minister.
Thank you. President Biden, Kishida Soridajin, Prime Minister Modi of India, Honorable Prime Minister, leaders, fellow ministers, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor for me to attend this launching on behalf of President Joko Widodo of Indonesia. As we approach mid-2022, the world has gotten better in mitigating the pandemic. This opened up opportunities for recovery and a stronger economic growth in the Indo-Pacific region. Clearly, the road is not easy and full of challenges, including global supply chain disruptions, as well as inflations due to the war in Ukraine and a trend of tightening monetary policy. The vast potential of Indo-Pacific as an engine of global economic growth cannot be realized alone. Therefore, we welcome the intentions of many countries, including the US, to strengthen economic relations and cooperations in the Indo-Pacific. Today's launching of Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, or IPEF, is proof of such intention. There are, however, a few principles that we must highlight. First, IPEF must deliver concrete and mutually beneficial cooperations. Only then will benefit of IPEF be enjoyed by our peoples. Second, IPEF must be inclusive and open to all countries in the region. The Indo-Pacific region is too large for the benefit of certain countries only. Inclusive economic cooperations will have a positive impact in the long run. We do not wish to see IPEF merely be an instrument to contain other countries. Third, IPEF should not create new development challenges for countries in the region. Implementations of norms and standards in economic operations must be supported by capacity building programs to ensure that all countries in the region can be fully participate. Last, we must encourage synergy between IPEF and other regional frameworks, especially the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific. Excellencies, it is our hope that IPEF can contribute toward peace and stability and prosperity in the region. For this, Indonesia stands ready to engage in dialogue and provide constructive input for the success of IPEF cooperations. I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister Lutfi. Can we turn now to the Senior Minister for International Trade and Industry of Malaysia? Mr. Minister.
President Biden, Prime Minister Kishida, honorable leaders. At the outset, let me convey my Prime Minister's apologies for being unable to participate in this auspicious launch, as he is on his way to Japan, even as we speak. He sends his best regards. It is my pleasure to be present at this launch of the process to establish the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, or IPEF. I believe that this framework will chart a new chapter for enhanced dialogue and consultation to advance the economic relations between the region and the United States. Malaysia welcomes President Biden's initiative to foster greater collaborative efforts in this region through this framework and the assurance that the United States is committed to the long haul to deliver real concrete benefits to all. Towards this end, Malaysia believes the framework should be an all-inclusive platform. Therefore, it is imperative to continue engaging all the ASEAN member states in this initiative to articulate the enduring relations enjoyed on all dimensions of cooperation between the United States and the region. I'm hopeful that the framework will open up new opportunities to explore and enhance cooperation in areas of mutual interest, such as strengthening supply chain resilience, digital economy, and clean energy. Befittingly, the IPEF could act as a broad structure for collaborative resolution of issues through cooperation, capacity building, and technical assistance. In turn, it could serve as an impetus to enhance competitiveness, economic resilience, and post-pandemic recovery for sustainable and inclusive growth of the region. It is most encouraging that the United States is committed to the principle of ASEAN centrality and inclusivity. We must therefore proceed in earnest to deliberate and translate the framework into an actionable plan guided by our shared purposes and values. By giving special focus on the trade and investment agenda, we stand to benefit through a more purposeful approach towards achieving the common objective of making the Indo-Pacific an open, connected, prosperous, resilient, and secure region. Malaysia is fully committed towards the success of the framework as we begin the collective discussions towards future negotiations of the pillars. Thank you, Secretary Blinken.
Mr. Minister, thank you very, very much. We turn now to the Philippines and the Secretary of the Department of Trade and Industry, Secretary Lopez.
President Biden, Excellencies, allow me to deliver the statement of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. The IPEF complements our individual and collective efforts towards inclusive recovery. The broad themes of the IPEF are generally aligned with the Philippines' economic and development priorities. Advancing resilience, sustainability, inclusiveness, and competitiveness are consistent with the Philippines' interests and development objectives. We affirm the importance of promoting emerging areas in trade, technology, and digital economy. The IPEF's pillars on supply chain resiliency, clean energy, decarbonization, and infrastructure are consistent with the joint vision statements for a 21st century United States-Philippines partnership. The vision of IPEF is also in line with the 2020 ASEAN Comprehensive Recovery Framework, the ASEAN Outlook for the Indo-Pacific, and the ASEAN Economic Community Blueprint 2025. The Philippines looks forward to seeing greater participation from other countries, particularly in the ASEAN region. We welcome the United States' assurance of support for ASEAN member states in pursuing IPEF initiatives. Today's launch is only the beginning of this conversation. Let us then continue to collaborate and move together towards our shared goals for the region. The Philippines congratulates the United States for successfully spearheading this initiative and Japan for hosting this virtual launch. Thank you. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And finally, we turn to Australia. I know that Prime Minister Albanese is on his way here as we speak. So we have the Associate Secretary in the Department of Foreign Affairs. Over to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you to President Biden for the opportunity for Australia to join the launch of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework. Thank you also to Prime Minister Kishida for hosting the launch in Tokyo. And as you've just heard, Australia held its federal election over the weekend, which means our Prime Minister, the Honourable Anthony Albanese, who has been newly sworn in today, is unable to join us here in person. He is in fact on a plane to Tokyo as we speak. But it is a pleasure for me to be representing the Australian government at this important occasion. The government is committed to promoting Australia's economic prosperity through building and maintaining a strong economy, and to do this alongside sustainable growth, resilient supply chains, and the skills, technology, infrastructure, and industries that underpin them. So Australia is delighted to be a founding member of the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, a framework that will bring countries in the region together to work towards these shared goals. This region, the Indo-Pacific region, is our home. It's where Australia's closest and most consequential partnerships are found. It's where our future lies. Australia has long valued closer economic engagement and integration in the Indo-Pacific. That is why Australia was the driving force behind the creation of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Grouping more than 30 years ago. And from today, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework presents another opportunity to continue that proud tradition. We welcome today's launch as a signal of our collective commitment to advance a free, open, prosperous, and resilient Indo-Pacific region at a crucial time. The framework brings together some of our region's largest and most dynamic economies. Together, we can leverage our strengths to grow our economies, boost trade and investment flows, and deliver tangible benefits to our people. We can also leverage these same strengths to address some of the most pressing economic challenges of our time. We welcome the framework's focus on shared regional priorities, including digital trade, supply chains, infrastructure, and the green economy. And we welcome its broad membership. We are joined by many of our close partners from across the region, including in Southeast Asia, Northeast Asia, India, New Zealand, and the United States. And we look forward to working with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. President, the floor is yours for closing remarks.
Well, I'll be brief. First of all, let me say thank you for everyone for joining today. And thank you very much for hosting us, Mr. Prime Minister. We launched this new framework. I appreciate hearing from all of you and for your contributions. And it's clear there'll be a lot of hard work ahead of us to forge consensus on each of the framework pillars. But in our discussions today, it's clear that we all recognize the fundamental direction we need to move in. We share the same goal of ensuring a free and open Indo-Pacific that will deliver greater prosperity and greater opportunity for all of our children. So let's all take all the tasks that we have together, work together, coming out of this launch, and to speed our progress toward that goal and work rapidly to develop the first commitments. So thank you again, Prime Minister Kishida, for your strong leadership in this launch and for welcoming us here in Tokyo. I'm looking forward to continuing work with all of you and to strengthen the economic cooperation to deliver inclusive growth and shared prosperity. You're all probably tired of seeing me after all this time, in the last couple months. But thank you again. I really appreciate the work you're all doing, and I think we can make some real progress. Thank you.